So, a slight change in plans here. I've been saying that we would do the game portion in Unity when we got there, and I also mentioned that I'd put the games together with a tutorial playlist, and that led back to a thought I've had lately of I want to do a playlist of game tutorials, but I don't want to work on an engine with a really fancy user interface already built. I want to go over the concepts of programming so that it's generalized because trust me, if you learn it initially with a really nice interface, then that interface suddenly is no longer free, or which could happen in situations like uh, a company goes public on the stock market, and now the decisions are going to be made by stockholders rather than by programmers that started the company. Seen that happen before, and I had to relearn some concepts. So I would rather do it conceptually typing the code. So that kind of means we're going to stick with Python here. Instead of using Unity, I'm just going to do it all in Python. So over here, I have the two standards for doing games in Python. For 2D games, we're going to go with PyGame, which is PyGame 2 now. That just came out a couple months ago, so I'm not sure about all the updates. I haven't dug through and looked at all the updates from PyGame 1, but PyGame has been around for about 20 years and is an excellent introduction to video game programming. And it's all scripted in Python, which is very easy to work with, good for beginners. And instead of having a big fancy interface to click our way around in, we can talk about the concepts in the game. And for 3D games, I was going to go with Panda3D, which is also scripted in Python, and it's entirely scripted in Python. So I want to do scripted versions, entirely scripted versions, and not have a user interface specific thing like what Unity would be. So I think I'm going to go back to this, which also works with what we've already seen on the controller because did our first test in Python. So I'm going to do the games, set up the 3D games for testing in Panda3D and one in PyGame, and then the tutorial series that I'm going to start after finishing the controller project will cover these two game engines and do the scripting all in Python and go over the concepts in game development. That way, when you move, you can move from engine to engine and know what's going on. And the only difference would be where the buttons are at on the nice user interfaces like Unity. You would know what all the features do and how they interact. It's just with each different engine that has a nice interface like that, you want to just have to learn where the new buttons are. So we will be doing this entirely in Python, writing the scripts, typing it up, which means we just have a couple modules to install. So we can just jump over and do pip install the PyGame, and same thing for Panda3D. Well, we already have Python, so we can just use pip to install the latest version of Panda3D, which is 1.10.7 here where I'm looking at it. So I'll just open PowerShell. And, well, if you're in the command prompt, you have to type Python, then -m for module, and then pip, and then install the one you want. And if you use PowerShell, they've updated that, so PowerShell will directly recognize pip itself. And we don't have to specifically say go into Python to do it. So I'm going to say pip install PyGame, which I just uninstalled that for this video, so it's probably going to load from the cache here. But I'll go ahead and run that. Yeah, it's using the cache here. You would see a little meter filling up and a list of packages downloading, but it's still this instruction. It just loaded from the cache because I just uninstalled it about 10 minutes ago to make this video specifically. So that gives us a 2D engine to work with. And for a 3D engine, we can type in basically the same command. Use pip to install Panda3D. Do I need capital letters there? Nope. Panda3D. version 1.10.7. This one will go through the whole meter and stuff. There it is, collecting the stuff, downloading. Yeah, so if you didn't already have PyGame on your computer, you'd see this when it downloaded. Should just take a second here to download it and then run through all the installers. I believe both of these do also have a regular Windows installer if you would prefer to just use that. But I'm going to pause while this installs now. Okay, so that didn't take very long. I went and refilled my coffee, and by the time I got back, it was finished. So it didn't take long. So now we have PyGame and Panda3D installed as Python packages. So we can go ahead and start scripting those and getting some games built. And instead of learning where the buttons are on an interface, we'll learn the concepts of what those buttons mean with an actual scripting language. And it'll join right in with what we've already done with the controller because we'll still be using Python, which is by far the most popular programming language in the world. Might as well look at that real quick. This is another reason I wanted to use Python instead of Unity with C#. Well, look for most popular programming languages. There's a lot of lists. This one, PyPeople on GitHub.io. This actually has bots measuring what programming languages are being used. And we can see Python is almost twice as popular as the second most programming language. So that's one of the main reasons I would prefer to do this in Python, and then back that up with, we'll talk about the concepts of game development instead of just where the buttons are at on a particular user interface. Because then if you know those concepts, you can just look for the buttons on a user interface and know exactly what to do with them. So that's what the tutorial is going to be about, and I'll start that playlist after finishing the controller project, which will just be a couple quick test games, a 2D one and a 3D, two 2D ones and one 3D one to get started at testing, and then I'll get started on that other tutorial that'll go through all this. But for us here on this playlist, we're going to be doing it all in Python because we've been using Python so far. So we've already seen how to communicate with our microcontroller based game controller using Python. So then we just need a game engine to bring that into. So let's get started in that in the next video. This is already up to about 8 minutes. So starting out would probably take it over 20 minutes long. So I'll render this down and get started making the next video.